Good morning. It's Monday, June 27th. And over the past couple of weeks, I've ranted about mostly terrible things that have been going on in this country. The gun violence, the epidemics, the pandemics, and of course the Supreme Court decisions. And what I've realized, and I realized this without really thinking about it, but it came to my attention by a couple of my cronies who have indicated that this country is on the way down because of our Constitution, because of the fact that the Senate is locked in place. You can't change any rules associated with the Senate. And because of the fact that the Republicans have out-gerrymandered the Democrats and figured out a way to become the majority party even though they are the minority party. In 2010 and in 2020 again, the Republicans have out-gerrymandered the Democrats. In many states where they do not hold a real voting majority, they do hold majorities in the state legislatures. And because of that, they are able to draw the lines, the districts, congressional districts, state districts, to suit their purposes. And they have figured out a way to make those little enclaves Republican-dominated. And so in a state like Wisconsin, which has, I think, 13 congressional seats, the Republicans get 10 of them without having a majority in the state. And they did that in many, many, many states. Now, don't get me wrong. The Democrats tried to do the same things, but they just haven't been as successful as the Republicans. So this is not a single-party idea, this gerrymander. Both parties do it, but the Republicans have done it much better than the Democrats. In fact, it got so bad in some states that they actually set up independent commissions whose only job it was to set the districts, the congressional districts and the state districts. And maybe that's what it should be. Maybe it shouldn't be the party in power in the state should set the districts, but an independent commission should set the districts. That would help an awful lot. But gerrymandering is a small part of the problem I want to talk about today. What I want to talk about today is the population distribution in this country. Now, this country as a democracy was set up for majority rule, but it also set up a situation where minorities had rights. And it's these minority rights that have gotten out of whack. And that's because of the population distribution. So when the Democrats control 50 seats in the Senate, but those seats represent 41 million more people than the seats that are controlled by the Republicans, with the same amount of senators. So some of you may think that we can do something about the seats in the Senate, but you can't, because that's one thing that's written in the Constitution that is 100% firm. You cannot change the rules of the Senate. It's 2 seats for every state, and that's it. You could, of course, try to get more states, but the Democrats don't have the votes to get Puerto Rico or Washington, D.C. to become states, or the Virgin Islands. We can't add states. That's almost impossible. So we are stuck with this situation of fighting the minority. And what's even worse is the population projections in the next 15 or 20 years will indicate that 15 states in this country will contain 70% of the population. And if that's true, those 15 states will have 30 senators, and the 30% of the population will have 70 senators. So that's a classic case of minority rule. And what we have seen recently with the effect of minority rule has been the destruction of the Supreme Court. Because we don't have any rules about what has to take place when a justice is nominated for the Supreme Court. You take a look at Merrick Garland, who was nominated by Obama in Obama's last term, and there were 7 or 8 months before the next presidential election. But Mitch McConnell, the most evil man in government and the most powerful man in government at that time, and probably still is, he delayed the vote on Merrick Garland for 8 months. And luckily for him And unluckily for the rest of the country, Trump won the presidency. And so Garland was replaced by Kavanaugh, and then Beta Ginsburg died, and she was replaced by Amy Coney Barrett, and we now have a severely conservative, not too intelligent Supreme Court. So imagine what's going to happen to this country if the population continues on its trend and the senatorial seats continue to be given away. They are given away now. We will decline further. And this has implications beyond the Supreme Court. In the Senate itself, if you have a majority that is really in the minority, there will be more filibusters. Nothing will get done. So the art of compromise will radically disappear. And this country will stagnate because of these minority rights, which are being abused right now because of the way the population distribution has grown. And of course, Republicans disagree with this view. They say it has worked for many years, and look how powerful, and look how wealthy, and look at what a great country we produced. And that's true. That's absolutely true. But that was a different time and a different place and a different set of minorities. Right now we have a nation that is split asunder because they are worried about the whiteness of. So things that happened in the past where minorities fit very well into the situation. They were not minorities in color. They were minorities in party representation. But now that we have a minority of people of color who are growing toward the majority, those whites are deathly afraid of the future in this country. And that is why we are in this situation. Right now, 4 out of every 10 voters who vote Democratic are non-white. Whereas on the Republican side, it's something like 1.5 to 2 out of 10. And as we know by population statistics, the non-whites tend to live in the more populated states. So this division in the country, this minority representation that we are faced with right now, is going to rip this country further apart as the population continues to change. And I leave you with those thoughts this morning, because think about it. In 30 or 40 years, 70% of the population will be represented by 30 senators, while 30% of the population will be represented by 70 senators. How do you think we're going to make out in that situation? Not good. I leave you with that this morning, and have a great day. Bye.